Welcome to Tequila in Your Tea. If you are joining us, this is episode 3. Thank you for coming back. Today we have the wonderful Courtney Nazire.
Hey. What's up? I'm excited. To be here.
If you don't know her, she's amazing. Always good vibes.
I can't. Veena, you're too kind.
It's real truth.
I appreciate you, for real. I really do. I'm like, you're so kind. You're the hype girl. I'm like, every time I see you, you always be like, yeah, girl, get it. I'm like, I receive it. I'm a words of affirmation person. So
Okay,
I'm like,
okay, all right.
I
Okay, that makes sense. I know it's not everyone's like love language, but I find that it is too easy for me to notice how amazing someone is to just not say it out loud, just for like 2 seconds. I don't have to be.
You're right.
Weird. Because it can get weird.
That's very
Some
true.
people be trying to compliment you, be like, can I just like have my privacy?
Right.
But you just like, no, like you've always had good vibes. You're an amazing person. She's an amazing singer.
Okay.
Know these things. But if you don't know, not only Courtney is first generation American.
I am.
Both parents from Haiti. Love that.
Sac passe.
She's joining us today because our episode is called Closed Off. And obviously, I've had my experience with being closed off to people, situations, the world. And Courtney had shared with me in the past that like she was trying to say yes more. I remember when you said that.
Did.
Like it resonated with my soul.
Ooh. Yeah, girl.
But yeah, like that works because you have not only said that to me, but you've described yourself as a classic social introvert. Surprisingly though, her job, she serves as a campus minister to the greater Philadelphia area.
I do.
She be out here traveling too. Like she doesn't just stay in one place. It's not like one person, one place, one-on-ones. No, she's out here doing the thing. But you're a Temple alumni too.
Hey, TU.
Yes.
Represent my owls.
And graduated with a bachelor's in public health.
Yes, I did.
How was that?
Honestly, so funny thing. I started out as a bio major doing pre-med because, again, my family's from Haiti. The immigrants are like, hey, doctor, lawyer, engineer, nurse.
That's it.
And I was like, ooh, first semester, we weren't doing too well. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, actually. So, but I know I wanted to stay health related. So I ended up finding public health through a senior that actually used to drive me to church. And she was a public health major, and I was like, oh, maybe that's something I actually want to be interested in. And so I ended up switching my major, and I loved it. So grateful for the switch. Like, it was the best. I actually enjoed my college career.
Oh, that's awesome. And I guess that's why you go back to colleges. And
Listen, I guess so.
Their process.
Listen.
If college was stressful, you might be like, oh, I don't want to go back.
Exactly. So I'm grateful. It wasn't the plan, doing ministry, but so grateful that the Lord called me into it, honestly.
Okay.
So,
see,
I'm a happy camper.
I think that's why it's extra special to do this episode with you, because I feel like people who are closed off and then you have the word ministry in like the same sentence.
Yep.
How does that work?
Yep.
It's a journey, a process. Like it takes a lot of effort to get there. So like,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. It's just baby steps. I think first off, I want to start with the fact that being closed off is kind of like a weird term, right? It's a term that people say all the time, but at the same time, like you have no clue what they're meaning. Right. So found an article. It's in the links, okay? So you can read it yourself. But I felt like they kind of described some of the characteristics you would see in someone who is closed off. And you probably just didn't know that they are, because there's different levels. I've always been of the level that you didn't know I was closed off. You would have to ask yourself later, like, no, she's always like warm and nice and friendly. Yeah, but you knew nothing.
Right.
Nothing
so
about
true.
what was going on in my life. So, all right. 15 characteristics here or there. It's not the same for everyone, but it's kind of the way they defined it. Yeah. One, they're not interested in getting to know you. I don't know if that was fully me. But there was definitely certain spaces where it was like, I just need to get in and out. Like, you're just wading through the sea. If you approach me, like, please don't expect me to try and understand. Like, I just need to get by.
Understandable.
So yeah, like, not less narcissism, more safety, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good distinction.
2, they're uncomfortable with affection. Yes or no, hit or miss. They don't want to share themselves.
Yes.
They feel self-conscious about showing emotion.
Yes.
Ding. They want to avoid conflict at all costs. Ding.
Yes.
Definitely. They are overly critical of others. When I was young, maybe. Now it's more like of me.
Yeah.
Definitely not
for sure.
others. They seem lacking in empathy or compassion. Yeah. Hit or miss. They avoid commitment. Probable. It all depends on the level of commitment, maybe. More of like a second guessing of commitment.
I see. That's I didn't think about that.
Your commitment. So should I commit because you committing? Doubtful. Yeah. So anyway, I was breaking these down.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't even think about that.
And then I was just like, oh wait, I kind of.
Actually, maybe.
I remember that. Charming, but in a superficial way. And of course, I originally wrote masking because I feel like that's a very learned behavior.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, I'll get into it. Their connections are shallow. Rather, and to explain, they also quoted, rather unsurprisingly, they get along better with fellow closed-off personalities. That way, they get to avoid the discomfort of someone wanting to get too close. They may have a lot of friends, but few very true friends because of the intimacy for emotionally unavailable people to attract one another. If you keep finding yourself dating a closed-off person, then you might want to consider if you're emotionally unavailable yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like,
ooh, that's deep. We're getting real deep.
Okay,
right
great.
In the heart.
Yeah. So the last few were really just highlighting avoiding deep and meaningful conversations. I guess I'm failing at that now. And they seem aloof or standoffish. And of course, I was like, I don't know if that's a good description, but may even appear bored, disinterested, or hostile. And I've thought of other people who I've met where their persona, their mask was angry all the time. RBF kind of vibes, male or female, didn't matter.
Absolutely.
And it was just because they did not want you in their space.
Yeah. That's
not
true.
because they hated you. It's just like, no.
It's a safety.
Yes. Exactly. Lastly was they might appear self-absorbed, which I was like, hit or miss. Or they prefer to sit back and observe. And yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's very much me.
So yeah, with those definitions per se, we can get into it. My first thought here was, do you think you made a conscious choice to just like shut yourself off, protect yourself from everyone, or if it was more like you woke up one day and was like, oh, I really don't let anybody in. Okay. So I'll let you start.
That's a good question. Yeah. I think for me, I kind of learned to be closed off. I would say partly culturally. I just wasn't used to really seeing emotions being shared. It was very much kind of like what happens like in your home or behind closed doors kind of stay there. So I was just I wasn't used to opening up and kind of sharing those emotions. I mean, maybe when I was younger and like a kid, you know, you're very expressive and you're like, this is what I feel. But I feel like as I grew older, especially kind of like really entering high school age, I noticed a shift there of specifically of kind of just, that's when I began to notice or at least reflect back. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of where I had surface level kind of like friendships and was closed off. So yeah, that's kind of how it was for me.
Yeah, I think I was pretty similar. I don't know if mine was cultural but it was definitely parental.
I see.
There was definitely that same, like, what happens in this house stays in this house. You tell no one kind of vibes, including, like, other family. And it was just like, but, like, we could actually use some help. No. It's not until, like, they come, like, knocking on the door. Like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
Something's off. Like, okay, now we might let them in. It was weird.
Yeah.
Also, I'd have to say my particular type of closed off is very much a learned behavior from my father. And it was subconscious.
Got you.
He's the type of person who's very, like, vibrant and life of the party. He loves going to big events, and, like, he's always welcoming, giving the biggest hugs, the biggest smile. But in the house, it was like completely different. Just very disconnected. Always a shallow conversation. Even now, like, as an adult, don't live there, might talk to him every 3 or 6 months, and it's just like always very shallow conversation.
Got you.
And so it's like, if deep things happen in life, it's like, oh, well, why didn't I know? Because you don't talk about those things.
Right.
You're like, how's the weather? How's the sports?
Yeah.
You're good? We're good. Click. Like, we're done. So I know for me, it wasn't initially intentional. I think once I got into college is when I noticed that I did it without thinking. That it was very hard for me to let people into what was going wrong.
Right.
It wasn't until my mom passed, and then my father was just like, oh, you need to find somewhere else to live. And I've told this story, so don't have to go there. But it was definitely where, like, I'm going to have to tell people what happened in our household, because it's not going to add up.
Yeah.
And it didn't. Like, the way my family was like, but you're the golden child. What are you talking about? You called me this? Like, what?
Listen.
And I was just like, no. It went down in my household. It was a hot effing mess. And now I'm out here trying to figure it out on my own, and no one knows why. And I'm like, technically, I don't know why, but here we are. So,
man, life. It's interesting to me how childhood really shapes adulthood, man. And the stuff that you are reflecting on, and now the things that you're trying to get out of are cycles and unlearning patterns. And so, yeah.
I think it's funny that you mention unlearning. I find that I have to still do that.
Same, girl.
I'm like 30,
it's a journey.
31 years old, at least over a decade removed from being under your parental figures on a daily basis, per se.
Right.
And I think over the years I've gotten a little better. I know that I am the type of person that genuinely likes to get to know people. I'm always like, I'm trying to not be too invasive, but someone's personal story intrigues me because I know that people have been through way more than what they show on the outside.
So true.
And that awareness makes me appreciate what people are willing to share more. Because now it's like, okay, so this is the version you gave me, which is great. I like this version.
Yeah.
But I already like...
But what else?
Like, I'm already like, but I have a feeling there's another version of you.
Right.
Or the version of you that is here has been through some stuff to get you to this version.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in knowing the depth of this version of you.
Absolutely.
And in that process, it's like learning how other people got through it.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
People's stories are so powerful, man. And I'm like, I totally relate to you in terms of unlearning and that journey, but it's also cool to see, like, oh man, like I have unlearned like certain things, and I'm like praise the Lord.
I grew up.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, we're healthy adults. There's still more to go, but we're in a good place.
Yeah.
So,
man, I do think one of the biggest things I had to unlearn was to stop hiding when something was wrong.
Ooh, girl. Yes.
Yeah. I just, I learned it in such a strong way.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was sick, but she had cancer for 6 years. She didn't tell anyone until she was 3 and 4 years in.
Wow.
And so we in the household saw her suffering.
Right.
But everyone else was just given the like, oh, you're losing
Fluff.
weight. You look great. What's going on? And you're just like in the back of your head, like,
Wow.
she's like 2 surgeries in.
Right.
Chemo almost killed her last week. But we're here and she has on a dress, so everyone doesn't know.
Right.
And
right.
you just have to keep smiling. And it's such a crazy out-of-body experience to know that on the inside you're like shaking.
Right.
But you just have to be pleasant and happy.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate the fact that, I don't know, and this might age me, but a lot of Gen Z is very much like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
You
that's so
don't
true.
Get real me.
That's very true.
And it's shocking. It feels abrasive, but at the same time, it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Because it gives me permission to have a bad day.
Yeah.
And to say that I'm having a bad day and that it's valid.
Yeah.
Versus always being expected to show up.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually like that you brought that up because obviously, like, I work with college students. They're all Gen Z right now. And I think they get a bad rap for being super emotional. But the thing is, at least they're being honest.
Ding.
You know?
That honesty part for me is so major. And it's something a lot of generations prior didn't have.
Exactly.
It's been creeping back into our ethos, our culture. But I guess the fact that you interact with Gen Z even more, you probably see it on a level where it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Because you can actually do something about honesty. You know, when you're open, you can actually fix the problem.
You better talk.
I'm just saying. But, you know, we hide. We have baggage. We don't share nothing. So it just stays there and it festers and it builds up. And we just walking around as broken people. So, yeah, man, I totally relate to you. I would never share when things were going wrong. And so they stayed going wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The struggle.
I do think that is one of the main reasons why a lot of my generation, which is millennials, Gen X as well,
right.
we can't bang with our boomer parents. It just so happens that my parents are boomers. So, like, it's just, honesty is not the best policy for them. It just isn't. It's very much you make do with what you have. You smile, you act nice, and that's it. I appreciated the fact that I could tap into that closed off space when I actually needed to protect myself.
Yeah.
There are times where I see people that are so open and honest and I'm like, but do you see that that person's a master manipulator and that they're only here to suck your soul? Like, do not do this.
Yeah.
Where you need to be closed off. You need to have that polite outer shell so that way they don't get what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's real.
Was there a time where, like, you can think of where you were really grateful for being closed off? Or at least having the ability to?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very important to use discernment, you know? Like, because vulnerability is really important. Like, we should be vulnerable.
In the right spaces.
Exactly. And with the right people.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is at a maturity level to handle that.
Yeah.
You know? Like, sometimes people will gossip or manipulate or whatever, and sometimes not even intentionally.
True.
You know, but yeah, I think it is important sometimes to have that guard up, especially if you're in like relationship with someone where it's like repeated behavior, you know, then part of it's on you. Like, you have to take ownership and responsibility for constantly kind of exposing yourself when they've demonstrated that they're not to be trusted. You know, and it's hard.
That is a hard lesson.
It is.
I think it was something I learned while growing up.
Yeah.
Especially when you start dating. Then you're kind of like, is it me or is it you?
Right.
Like, I'm really confused. Let me just like step back. And then you start to learn, like, okay, no, you just can't right now.
Yeah.
You're not at that spot.
That's so true.
And that's when discernment starts to kick in.
Yeah.
It's not that they're evil.
Right.
They just can't.
This can't. You know, I think that's important to recognize where people are at. Because definitely I realized that, especially in dating, like, sometimes you share you share things that they're not even deserving of yet, And so, it's just recognizing of like, okay, are we at a place where there's trust established? Have you earned that yet?
Yeah.
It really is kind of, just using that wisdom and discernment.
And you're right, because we've all done it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's definitely been a few years since I've done it. And I am grateful for that level of maturity.
Yeah.
But I had to scrape my knees first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's also that understanding that it's okay to screw it up.
Yes.
Like, it's okay to, like, overshare and then be like, I don't want to do that again.
Exactly.
Like, recognize. But it also speaks to a special person that you are. Because, like, as people of faith, like, we definitely believe in seeking discernment. Like, that's a quality we desire to have.
Yes.
But at the same time, there's some people that just naturally, like, that's a hard character to come by.
Yeah.
They're just going to walk into the wall. They're going to stub their toe. And it's like, what do you do when you can't read the room?
Yeah.
At the same time, like, I don't know if my ability to read the room is something I would consider a gift. I would consider that a trauma response. It's
that's
like,
deep, girl.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with actually one of my cousins where it's like, no, we scan the room, we're reading between the lines, we're doing full analysis of body language for 10 people over because we grew up in spaces where we had to walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
Where it was always like, like a pin could drop right now. Like, do I need to move to the right or the left? How do I diffuse the situation? Is it laughter? What?
Right.
And it's like, okay, my discernment actually, like, tipped in the scale of the opposite direction.
Right.
And that's how you end up really closed off because you think everyone is out to get you.
That's so
like,
true.
Everyone's horrible. So not feeling like there's any one right answer. It's always the balance. And I guess it brings it back full circle to having good counsel, having someone that you can say, like, hey, I'm getting these vibes.
Right.
What you think?
Exactly.
Because they're going to have that perspective or that discernment that you just don't have in that moment.
Exactly. For sure. I mean, we have blind spots. The reality is you can walk in great discernment and still sometimes get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so it is important to have people, trusted people speak into things, because it is so easy for us to just walk blindly. Yeah. So I feel you. I feel you, girl.
Don't want to do that again. No more blind walks.
Yeah.
Was there a time where you noticed you being closed off was actually a problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your moment?
For sure. I mean, because I mentioned earlier a little about high school, like I recognized I had surface level friendships, and I'm just like, man, I don't really go deep with people. It was kind of similar to what you were describing when you were reading off the list of people. Like, I would know a lot about other people, actually, but they would not know anything about me, and it left me feeling not known or understood or seen because I wasn't letting people see me. Yeah. And so, and especially going into college, and that's really where I began my relationship with Lord, I would say. He just started to put a finger on it. He's like, hey, sis, it's time to open up, And because it leads you to kind of living, at least for me, kind of like a double life of no one knows what's going on internally, and yet I'm projecting, like masking, like everything's good. Never shared when things are going wrong. And so now I'm suffering in isolation because nobody knows what's up, So yeah, absolutely. There's definitely major, and it took years really to walk out of that and to recognize that, oh, I'm safe. I'm actually with safe people and I can let my guard down. But that definitely took time. That was not an easy thing for me to go through, for sure. Because, you're just used to living your life a certain way.
Yeah.
And having those walls up for so long.
I think sometimes the hardest part is finding the safe people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because
for sure.
you had the walls up for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's like, ooh, what safe person? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
What's a safe person?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, it's interesting you say it that way. I had a moment, like a flashback of like, oh, remember when you were in middle school and you wrote that poem about like wearing the mask? And I was like, oh, nope, I didn't. Okay. Yep. But like, I remember very vividly being aware that I wore a mask. Didn't know that was me being closed off, but I was aware that I felt like I could not actually share what was going on like, with anyone. And I still didn't realize it was a problem though. Not in middle school, not in high school. Yeah, I felt alone, but like, I thought that's what it was supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to stick with the family, stick internal. I think it became a problem with me when my core family imploded. And then it was like, oh wait, so I was keeping everything in for us, but now there's no more us. Right. What? Yeah. You mean I've been suffering and dying inside for nothing? Right. Like, what is this? Like, well, I don't understand. Unfortunately, I do think that happens a lot because people who isn't traumatized by their parents, honestly, like, just like real quick. I mean, even if it's minor, there's something that you've learned from your parental figures that is just not okay for you. And
that is interesting. Especially because, again, like my context working with college students, and it's actually very rare that I'm mentoring a student that has a whole family. Like, honestly. And it's sad, but it also, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I enjoy what I do, because I'm like, I know that you're going to grow up and you're going to have a whole family. And I'm like, y'all going to change the generations. So.
Plus you have a heart for where they're at and where they're going. You are the safe space. You are the safe person. So if they are introduced to you, then there's like a glimmer of hope. Oh, these people exist. And I do think it was when I started to recognize some safe people. And to be fair, I know that there's some people in our lives that care about us, but still aren't necessarily safe. And like you said before, it's unintentional, where in order to defend themselves in a situation, all of a sudden all the things you've been feeling and struggling with is now common knowledge to like 5 other people so they could get feedback. And I was like, yikes. Yeah, but you didn't get my permission to discuss that. Like, you really didn't. With your friends. Okay, cool. Could you do that with your paid therapist that I know like these things won't get out? Like, about real talk. Like, you need feedback. Go to your pastor or your therapist. This bed not be common knowledge. I better not see them at the Christmas party, okay? And unfortunately, it was such a thing where I was like, oh, so I thought I could trust you. You said I could trust you, but I could only trust you up until the point where you felt unsafe or you felt you had to defend yourself. And to an extent, if I was someone who was struggling with like abuse or a knife came out, like, please do what you gotta do. I will take that heat. Like, it's my fault. You fending for your life. But there were definitely times where I was just like, oh no, I'm just not emotionally safe with these people at this particular point. It's not that they're horrible people. They're just in such a state of pain and disarray that I keep trusting them and it keeps hurting. So
I agree. And I think the hard thing too, because even if you're with safe people, there's still that risk, of offense or of things being shared, and having that trigger and being like, oh, wait, but they're safe people. And you don't want to pull away. You don't want to put the walls back up. And so even learning to navigate that, as I've grown in that area, knowing that, oh, there's still risk anyway. But that's okay, because I also have to I'm not always getting it right either, I
was just about to say, for me, I learned that when I technically did that to someone else, and I say technically because I'm defending myself here. I say it because I'm like, well, I thought I was sharing a piece of information to show light on that person. Like, they've been through this and they are that. Aren't they amazing?
Right.
And that person was very much like, I don't want you to share that knowledge.
Yeah.
If I share that, I choose to share that.
Got you.
And I didn't consider it anything too intimate, but they did.
Right.
And so it's this line of being a safe space and seeking a safe space at the same time. How much can you share? How much would you share? Or do you just never share? And I know that as I'm still navigating that space, it's always remembering at least how I felt in those spaces where it's just like, why would you say things like that? Because then I can always make sure that I remain a safe space for this person by apologizing.
Right.
It's not that deep.
Exactly.
All you do is say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The reason we're scarred is because no one said we're sorry.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, they were literally like, oh, but it's still your fault. And I'm like, it's my fault that you triggered me? Like, the trauma you gave me is my fault.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yes, and that's the difference.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like the mature thing to do. I think we have a problem really in our society of just not taking accountability.
Yeah.
You know, not taking ownership, because it really can be resolved easily. You know, like if I'm offended, and like, yes, I can like recognize that hurt.
My
fault. Yeah, but if I am offended, and if that person that offended me says like, hey, like, I noticed I offended you. Like, I actually have, like, I can still feel that hurt, but there's a respect that I have for this person for taking ownership, you know?
It's the other side of that honesty. We're happy for the honesty and openness.
Yeah.
But that comes with the responsibility of you being honest enough to know that you screwed up today.
Exactly.
And it's okay that you screwed up today. And it's like, okay, all right, cool. We're still having a relationship because I can trust you with the fact that if you make a mistake, you own it.
Right.
And that means I can too.
Exactly.
I don't have to be on the defense. You're not a manipulator. It's just a human relationship.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I agree. That's what safety is, you know? Like, safety isn't about like, oh, this relationship is absolutely perfect. There's no offense there. But it's like that trust that even if there is offense, you know, you're going to own it, you know? So
I do have to say, I think a good majority of my friendships that I had growing up only air quotes ended because there was nothing official. There was no like letter of like, we're done. Like, it was more just like they just ceased to continue because there was this awareness that I always made myself available. And if there was something wrong, like, hey, tell me. Because I don't mind apologizing.
Right.
But if I tell you there's something wrong, like you've done something to me, and then you flip it to you have to defend yourself. It's always my fault anyway. And then it was just like, oh, never mind. Like, it immediately shut me down.
Yeah.
And I do think that's because they triggered the spot of like, oh, and of course now, you know, we're woke. It's gaslighting.
I can't.
It's gaslighting.
Cannot.
So like, oh,
here we go.
You've triggered my gaslight. Got it. Sorry. That brings me back to that place in my childhood where I knew this was wrong and you still told me it was okay because you did it, so you do it. And like, oh, okay.
Here we go.
But yeah, no, I can appreciate, at least where I am now, this season of life where not only all the people that I'm surrounded by, just in our general community as far as church, anyone that I'm interacting with, but like my actual core group of people I see on a very regular basis, there is that level of trust. There's that honesty. There's that back and forth. That's where
so good.
I feel like I can pour out and I can support. And then if something's wrong with me, they'll actually show up. What?
Wow. Look at
a
that.
Shock.
We love community.
But I think it's the idea that I, one point, never thought I'd find it.
Yeah.
I did say, like,
that's real.
Nah, we out here on our own.
Yeah.
Like, maybe need to, like, buy a van and, like, travel the world and, like, never ever do this again.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I guess you've kind of talked about, like, choosing those baby steps to open up, like, once you realized.
Yeah.
What were some of those baby steps for you?
Yeah. Well, I will say, honestly, what taught me to become more open was actually seeing other people's openness. So I actually remember this moment in college. It was my junior year, I want to say. And it was a couple of friends who were part of the campus ministry that I'm now helping on staff with. And they were sharing some struggles. And I was like, wait, is this allowed? Like, I was like, wait a minute.
That's too much.
Right.
I know that's TMI to you. Right. TMI because you didn't need to share all that.
Exactly.
That's painful.
I was like, wait, they just out here sharing what they're dealing with? It was so foreign to me. It really was. But I was like, wow. Like, there was such a relief.
Yeah.
You know, to be like, oh, like, me too. Like, I'm struggling too.
Yeah.
You know, and that really changed things for me. That was like such a marker of what it really looks like to walk in that kind of just like godly community. And so I think after that, like, I mean, that was the first step of me even just owning that I'm not this perfect person, you know, like I project this, you know, I'm masking, but on the inside, your girl is going through it. And yeah, so that was really the first step, is like sharing with a safe group of people.
Yeah.
And it just turned into a little bit many more steps of beginning to share more with those around me. And again, it was still with safe people, you know, and especially like with mentorship, like that was something that was so influential and still is in my life. And just knowing that, wow, like I can still be viewed as who I am, even if I don't have it all together. Yeah. You know, to still be viewed the same. Because I had such fear of judgment. I really, really did. Like, I struggled a lot with shame.
And preaching.
Listen, like, my story, like, I struggled a lot with, like, just sexual sin, pornography specifically. And that was, like, it's so taboo, you know, and especially in the Christian world, but as a woman, you know, because it's a man's problem.
Yes. Oh.
Listen, I can't tell you, even now, how many students come up to me and share the same thing, you know? And so it is, I mean, it's pretty rampant. But because I was so closed off, then I just struggled in silence because I just didn't think it was allowed. I couldn't share that. So to be in a room of like 3 other girls saying that they struggle with similar things or the same thing was so powerful for me. And it honestly demonstrated even like God's love in that moment of like, listen, like, I love you as you are. We're going to, obviously, like, he's going to walk me through freedom, and praise God, he has. But I want to, I love how he chose to show it in that moment through other people. Yeah. You know, like, I shared it. You up. Yeah, he sure did. The world did not crash down, you know, when I said those words, you know. They were like, okay, well, let's pray. And I was like, wait, that's it? You know?
Not condemnation.
Right.
Not like, oh, child.
Right.
Oh, we're going to need to do something special for you. What's wrong with you?
Listen.
All the nightmare words.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, because that's like all the lies, you know, that are in your mind when you're going through, you know, anything that you're struggling with and ashamed of. But yeah. So I had to realize that if I really want to walk in freedom and if I really want to live in authenticity, you know, I can only go as far as I am honest. Wow. You know, and so.
That's such a line.
Listen, it's real. It's real.
But it's so simple. Yeah. I can only go as far as I am honest.
Yeah.
it breaks down to even principles and saying like, I can't help you unless you ask.
Yeah.
I can't read your mind.
Right.
I might be able to see what you need, but I could see something you may need, and it's not the need.
Right. Exactly.
That's a great. Honestly, I'll take that as a great way to end, because that is kind of the principle to why we've gotten to where we have, where we're not as closed off.
Yeah.
I mean, catch
So
me on
true.
the right day and I'm shut down. But
listen, we still have our moments.
But most of the time, like, I can be more open and honest with my journey. I can do this podcast because I'm at a spot where I'm like, no, me being more honest about what I've been through is for more than just me. Yeah. Like, somebody else who thinks they're alone needs to hear it. It's those small spaces of like, oh, wait, you talk about that? Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that. Exactly. If we don't talk about that, we die from that.
Exactly.
Like, we need to
That's bars,
fix that.
Veena. Bars. Okay? That's so true.
Oh, but no, I'm really grateful that you came. I'm really grateful that we had this chat. Girl. Because
I'm happy to be here. I've been having a good time.
It was like a good
going
cup
deep.
Of tea. Yes. But at the same time, in a real way. Yeah. Anyway. Hopefully you got something out of this. Yes. Like I said, the Courtney Nazire. Thank you. Yeah, you'll see her around. If not, look her up on Freedom Church. I promise you'll see her in everything. I can't. Yeah, no. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will just say, cheers to your journey. Yes. And mine. Cheers. I'll be taking my tea one sip at a time.